Good evening, sir.
Good evening. I am Jim Welker. Mr. Mayor, for 8 years, the financial status of this community has been hidden from the people. Bring back the state auditor to finish the audit. Have the off-books accounting incorporated into the state audit. Post the results of the audit. Balance this city's budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I want to thank the speakers and the guests for your decorum and letting and respecting the other people speak and voice their opinions, even if they were opposed here. So I want to thank you all for that. Up next, we have public hearing item number 16, draft community development block grant 2018-19 action plan. Good evening.
Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Council reviewed and accepted the ad hoc committee recommended CDBG 2018-19 projects and funding on March 13, 2018. The 30-day public noticing period began March 23rd and ended April 23rd, stating the draft annual action plan was available for public review and comments. Those council-approved projects and funding limits are listed in the draft annual action plan, which has been posted to the city website and available for public review. During this 30-day public review period, no comments were received. The funding total is $880,464, which includes $128,219 of previously unexpended funds. The requested council actions tonight are to conduct the public hearing of the draft CDBG annual action plan, then to authorize the city manager to sign the signature page of the application for federal assistance SF 424 and execute the non-state government certifications required for submission of the 2018-19 final annual action plan, and to submit the final annual action plan and application for federal assistance to HUD for their review and consideration. Mayor Percival, that's all I have for this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know the ad hoc committee put in a good effort on this, and there's only limited funds to be spread around, and I think they did a great job. This is a hearing item, so I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. I do have one speaker that filled out a request to speak, and that's Mary Jo Ramirez. Are you here? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. It's great to see all of you. And I just wanted to thank you on behalf of Caravan Transit. Although I'm the executive director for another nonprofit, I have worked very diligently with Caravan from its founding in 1994. And I just wanted to remind the City Council that Caravan's coming to its 25th anniversary in 2019. And we're just very, very pleased that you've continued to support this wonderful transportation service that provides for disabled, for seniors, and for the low income in our community. And it's been a great, great time of being able to give to the community. It's a very unique nonprofit agency in that it provides that transportation. There's not very many cities in Riverside County that have that type of support for its citizens. So I want to thank you on behalf of the Caravan Board, on everyone that rides that van, for your continued support. So thank you guys very, very much.
You're welcome. This is a public hearing, and I don't have any more cards filled out, but is there anybody else who would like to speak on this item before I close the public hearing? Don't all rush the mic at once. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Comments from council?
Okay, I'll go first. In response to Mary Jo's comments, the amount of money that the city contributes through CDBG to Caravan each year allows them to quadruple that amount with RCTC and other additional state and federal funding to keep this program going. So the nominal amount that we give is really multiplied at a higher level or different with other agencies to give a service to our residents who absolutely need it. So good job. I'm glad you continued making that recommendation, and thank you, Mary Jo. That
We always wish it were more.
yeah, but it's a fantastic organization, and I remember when it started. Go figure. I think I've been older than dirt. So,
Russ?
Well, I do appreciate your expression of appreciation for the grant funding through CDBG. My late mother-in-law was suffering from macular degeneration, and she couldn't drive anymore, and so she appreciated the service that was available through Caravan to help her get to places that she wanted to enjoy but couldn't drive herself anymore. And I was pleased to have worked with my colleague Bonnie on this ad hoc committee. That was my first exposure as a newer council member working on an ad hoc project like that. And it was very refreshing to see in a community this size just how many bona fide applicants are out there doing and providing good services that make this a quality community. And it was not an easy decision. Bonnie and I spent quite a bit of time reviewing, and we started in pencil and wore the pencil down and had to resharpen the pencil a few times. But I think we came up with a good balance and a variety of projects and endeavors that make this a good quality effort.
I just want to say a few words. I spoke mostly about this the last meeting, but, when you are governed by the guidelines giving you a certain percentage of what you're allowed to provide, it's always challenging. And although the total amount of money seemed pretty significant, and we certainly appreciate the amount that the city is allotted, because there are many cities that receive actually half that amount. So we're very appreciative that we do have the amount that we get. It's still always a challenge. There's always never enough. But we, like Russ said, we really tried to balance it out and make sure that we provided for those that really made a big difference within the community. So again, I really appreciate as well your appreciation that we were able to, again, provide that funding for you, and we hope to continue that. So thank you.
This is an action item or a public hearing item that we need to take up. Does anybody?
I'm going to approve that.
I'll second.
Very good. Up next, item 17 is a discussion action item, recommendation by engineering. Good evening.
Good evening. The City of Hammett regularly applies for different grant funding, and most of them are from federal governments that are distributed to us through Caltrans. Caltrans requires following a certain process and submitting paperwork and different requests as different phases of the project. One of those requirements is submittal of a right-of-way certification. By submitting a right-of-way certification, we go through identifying all the utility relocations and any kind of temporary easements that we may need, or actually even a long-term easements or permanent easements. And Caltrans requires a resolution for each one of those right-of-way certifications. Some of the projects that we currently have are like the Stetson Bridge improvements, the Gilbert Street that we just finished, and the pedestrian push-button improvements that we are working on. These are the types of projects that require this right-of-way certification. And tonight we are requesting that you authorize the city manager to submit these right-of-way certifications once they are ready. This will help us expedite the process in receiving of our grant funding.
The resolution says the mayor signs. At least he signs the resolution. One of us will sign it.
It requires a resolution.
Just make sure you read it 3 times before you sign it.
Yes, sure.
Not the resolution, just the individual things that come from Caltrans.
That was item 17. I have another. The next item is item 18.
Let's get through item 17 first. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none? Okay, good. What's the direction of council?
Adopting a resolution.
Please vote. Very good. Up next, item 18, Traffic and Parking Commission recommendation for the naming of a private streets A and B within the city of Hemet Auto Mall.
Pedder Auto Group is currently in a plan check process for a new Chrysler dealership that is going to go at the southeast corner of Warren Street and Auto Mall. There are 2 private streets to the south and to the north of the property. And therefore, the group is asking for a street naming. The street naming process has gone through the traffic and park commissions. However, there's been opposition to the last 2 names that were recommended, and that's what it is in the current staff report. Due to those objections, we just received a letter today from the Pedder Auto Group that requesting withdrawal of those 2 names, and instead they have recommended another 2 names that are parts of the names that you could have chosen from in that list, in the list that was recommended. So the current recommendations are for Street A are the Stagecoach Way, and for the B Street is the Motorway. And if we go to the next, do we have another? So you can see the B Street. If you go back there. B Street and A Street are identified on this exhibit. This is the B Street, and then the A Street. And what they are proposing at this point for your considerations are for the A Street to be called Stagecoach Way, and for B Street to be called Motorway.
All right. I would like to speak about this. While I think I'm excited to hear about their name request, what I think is very important is that the private property part, and regardless of the streets around it and the theme. I was hoping that the owner would choose to fit within the theme on his own free will instead of making us choose. And so I'm glad to hear, and you should probably let him know that. Because it is about working together with your neighbor, not just doing what you want, even though it's your land. So I would support like whatever name he chose, because I believe in property rights. But I'm very glad to see that he worked with his neighboring businesses. So thank you very much for bringing that.
Any other comments?
I just wanted to mention, Mayor and Council, that Russ Ward representing Petter Auto Group and Tim Morgan representing Gosh Auto Group were both here earlier, and weren't sure how long this was all going to last. And given that they had agreed on the two names, they are not here right now to speak, but they did want me to make sure you understood that they were here and they were in agreement.
So all the neighbors get along with each other now over street names
Well, and it's good
on private property?
It's good to remember that this whole auto mall was a collaborative effort
Right.
between
All of
the auto dealers there. So I commend the two for coming to a consensus. And I guess my other question was, were there any concerns from the other dealerships? Not that it matters, but in any event, the collaboration, beginning to end, is certainly an important fact to remember. So I totally agree with Carly that we'd like the message back that we were happy that they worked it out and we didn't have to.
So the clarification, Stagecoach will continue all the way through when the other new parcels will be brought up?
Actually, Motorway
Which is which?
is this one.
The Motorway is the long one?
Between the Gosh dealerships and the Petter,
Okay.
New Chrysler dealership.
And
This is
Stagecoach
Stagecoach.
is the short one.
That would, the short one.
Okay, will that ever, extend
No.
further, whatever that direction is?
No, it'll just be that short
And there's a
segment.
traffic circle there?
Yes. Actually, yeah, I think it's designed as a throughway, but it's a T intersection, so
Oh, okay.
Stagecoach doesn't.
It doesn't go through. Okay. Yeah, it is good that they came to an agreement.
And I'm really
between
glad
themselves.
we didn't have to consider Ram Road.
Yeah.
Somehow that just didn't sit very well.
Well, I concur with all of the comments that have been made so far, and as I was reading through the staff report and considering what comments I might make, I really was not totally comfortable with potentially having to overrule a recommendation from a commission, because I think it's unfortunate when it may come to that, and occasionally there's valid reasons that council would have to do that, but only as a last resort. So I'm very relieved that the neighbors got along and worked out an agreement, and I'm also happy to see that Stagecoach Way, it's only 13 letters, so it stays within our policy. That's good to know too. So I'd like to move approval of the revised recommendation based on the agreement from the involved parties.
Second that.
Before we vote, this is an action item, so is there anybody out there that would like to speak on this item? All right, seeing none. Okay. Please vote. All right, that passes unanimous. Okay, moving on. City Council reports. Councilmember Brown.
Okay, the Water Master Board meeting, I guess I'll be flying solo again on that because our primary representative is going to be elsewhere. That meeting has been moved to the 21st because of the holiday. So it's on my calendar to attend that next month. I have nothing new to report from the Disaster Planning Commission. I don't want to usurp our fire chief's comment on this, but there's a very important exercise that's being planned for Thursday, and Chief, feel free to come up and comment on that if you'd like. But I think it's a massive full-scale exercise that involves a number of agencies, and I'll let you elaborate.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. Members of the council, Thursday, the 26th, at between 8 o'clock and noon, we're conducting a joint training exercise with Hemet Valley Hospital. This is the first time that we've undertook such a large scale. We are in unified command with the Hemet Police Department, CAL FIRE, and Sabova. We have a number of outside agencies that will be participating directly, and this is part of our operational plan to exercise our internal planning, our command and control communications, and all the operations that we need to put into place if there's a fire at the hospital or any incident. Keith Garrison, their chief chief operating officer, has been at the center of this along with our team, and this is part of their accreditation process, so it's very important. But we're excited to be part of that. I think we've extended that invitation to all our council, and look forward to seeing you if you can make it there Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. And that's it.
Thank you, Chief. I just want to reiterate that these kinds of full-scale exercises indeed are incredibly complex in the planning and the implementation of those exercises, but it's a critical component. You can do tabletop exercises all day long, but a full-scale exercise like this involving real people and resources is a true test of your ability to respond and mitigate. So I applaud the effort of all the partnering agencies on this, and I look forward to observing Thursday morning. And I have nothing more to report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Krupa.
Yes. RCTC, we're working on the New Year's budget. The Mid-County Parkway is listed as, of course, one of the priorities to go forward. Realignment of 79 is still there, but we're still down in the small print, so we're working on bringing that up a little higher in the next year. The Ramona Bowl Association, the 4th grade performance was last Thursday, and about 15 to 20 minutes into the first act, it got rained out. Only in Southern California. So they got 5,000 kids out of the bowl onto the buses, and by the time the last one pulled out, it stopped raining, the sun came out, and it was a beautiful day. So it was really interesting. The opening day was Saturday. It was a pretty good turnout. First nighter was again at the stock farm, and some of our residents were there, and met 3 ladies at the performance. The bowl gave out press kits to invited press people, and it was a red bag. So I'm walking down from the Ramona Terrace, and I see these 3 women, and there's a red bag on the ground. So I immediately go into my song and dance routine about, oh, it's so nice that you're here, and we, what can we do, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And they looked at me like I'd grown another head, and I went, oh, you're not with the press? And they said, no. I went, oh, well, where are you from? They were from Arizona, and they came over specifically to see Ramona, because one of them had read the book so many times, and she finally convinced her other 2 sisters to make a weekend of it. So they stayed at the Quality Inn. I invited them to come to First Nighter, which they did. Loved the history of the stock farm. And I do need to shout out to Hemet PD, Hemet Fire Department, and their explorers for coming down and doing all the good work, and also to the Savages for coming and enjoying an evening sitting outside at the First Nighter, and also for seeing the play. So thank you for being there.
Absolutely delightful. I don't know if any of you guys have ever gone to that first night thing after the Memorial Bowl. It was because of Linda
Very good, thank you. It is fun, and it's one of those things where there's absolutely nothing for kids to do. There's no organized activity. There's nothing. They just have to be kids, and they ran, they played, they crawled on tractors, on hay bales, you name it, they did it. No crying, no screaming, no fights. People were having beer and wine and eating and dancing in the barn. No disturbances of any kind. I mean, it's just good, old-fashioned fun. So y'all need to go next year. Let's see, and Ramona, again, is this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday is the VIP reception. Expect to see a lot of you up there. And then next weekend is their final performance. RTA meeting is this week, so I have nothing to report on. The library board, Kathy just sent me a text. It said the cloud library is now available. And since I left the meeting early, I don't have a clue what that is. Could you come up and tell us what the cloud at the library is, other than rain cloud?
Good evening, Council. Cloud Library is a consortium in Southern California of about 8 or 10 libraries, and we have available through cloud linking over 78,000 ebooks and audiobooks available. Yeah, it's little app that you put on your phone or your device. It doesn't have to be your phone. And so it's wonderful. We've purchased a small collection, but in our little power there goes towards everyone in Southern California. Of course, our borrowers have first crack at the books that we have selected, and this is going to be a growing collection, and it's, oh yeah, free. It's free.
Legal file sharing.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy. League of Cities' next general meeting is, I was just looking that up, May 14th, and it will be in Palm Springs at the Hilton, I believe, and y'all might want to sign up for it, including the city manager, because our speaker is going to be talking about CalPERS and the onerous burden. But there's a company that is coming out with some workable solutions. They're currently working with the city of Corona, and we have asked both Corona and this entity to come and talk to the league about the ins and outs of how we can deal with PERS or how we can change Sacramento's mind. And other than that, that's all I have. Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. Sorry about that. Chris Jensen and I were at the fondly referred to as the LEJUA meeting, which is Lake Elsinore San Jacinto Watershed Association? Agency, something like that. Anyway, it's dealing with the water quality of Canyon Lake and Lake Elsinore, for which they like to say we're to blame because of runoff. And what's really interesting is that they have really made leaps and bounds over the past few years of cleaning up the water, especially in Canyon Lake, with the application of alum. It's an aluminum hydrate concentrate or something, but it's alum. And fortunately, it is low cost and works extremely well to clean up algae in the water. Lake Elsinore has some added issues, but they are working collectively on it, as we are also a part of that. And through that, that's where our TMDL payments come from, and basically all the surrounding areas that contribute to in that watershed. We all work collectively on cleaning up drinking water. So it was a horrible lunch, one of those rubber chicken lunches, but other than that, the presentations were absolutely fantastic and the information was good. Now I'm done.
Okay. Well, I don't have a whole lot to report. I was out of town quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. However, we do have the SCAG conference, Southern California Association of Governments, next week, the 3rd and 4th of May.
And you need to be there as the alternate.
And I need to, what?
You need to be there as the alternate.
Yes, because he's not going
That's right. That's right. Wait a minute.
I'll be in Sacramento.
Okay. So, and that's in the desert. I was out of town for the homeless task force and skate plaza task force. However, what I reported last time with regards to the skate plaza task force, we have set a scheduled meeting for the developer to come out and meet with the committee and give us the plan moving forward as to how this progresses for the feasibility study. So we're looking forward to that. And I believe, I want to say it's on the, I hope it's not on the 14th. Let me,
No, it's a Wednesday.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
14th is a Monday.
and it's not,
I have you on the 16th.
oh, yeah, 16th, good. That's great. So, other than that, I don't have a whole lot to report. I'm good.
All right, we have our park commission meeting coming up, as Chris said, Monday the 30th, and it's at, what park did she say? At the Stony Mountain Park. That's where they're going to plant the tree and have the meeting. So, and then RCHCA is going to be this next month. We meet quarterly. And we have another homeless outreach team meeting coming up probably in about 2 weeks. So, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I was not at Planning Commission because that was Bonnie's week and you were out of town. I do know that there was a good-sized turnout for the public hearing on Sanderson and Stetson, that property. Beyond that, I don't know what happened there. Okay, very good. When is that continued to?
May 15th.
May 15th. Okay, good. Okay, there was no RCA meeting. That was before the last meeting. A couple things that I went to this over the last couple weeks. On Thursday, I went to a ribbon cutting for the Marion Ashley Lamb Canyon Landfill Education Center. If you've got small kids, or if you're interested in trash yourself and that, the facility is actually really nice. Right, it's a really nice facility. It's up on the hill, and the views are amazing. But to be able to watch what they're doing down below in the canyon with trash and how they're mitigating the trash, and they've got the way this is set up is they're set for, it'll be able to service our area for at least 40 years as far as trash and how much trash they're putting in. And I see a hand going up, so if you want to go up here and comment on the Marion Ashley trash landfill education.
So my name is Sue Savage, and what I'm interested in is you see all the time plastic,
Yes.
500 years before it decomposes. Do they talk about that there?
The whole part of it is it talks about the history of that landfill, when it started, how long it took to get to a certain point, how many years. It took like 30 years before they moved to the next phase of it, and then the second phase was 14 years. And so there's a timeline, and you kind of go around, there's pictures and a bunch of information about the landfill and how to educate. The thing is, with the way the landfill is and the way the regulations are, they still line with plastic. So the trash goes on top of plastic before it gets covered up and compacted and all of that. So it's very interesting. If you ever get a chance and you're interested in the trash, I recommend going up there and checking it out. On Saturday, I was also at the First Nighter. Lots of fun, great community event. There's always people talking about what is there to do in Hemet. This is an event that you don't want to miss if you've never been. Next year, the First Nighter, it's at the Hemet Stock Farm. Hopefully it'll be there again next year. We'll see what happens. But it's a great property, it's a great event, and it's definitely a sense of community there, and you get to meet some of the cast members that are in the play. On yesterday morning, I was at McSweeney Elementary School for the Public Schools Celebration. What it is that the Freemasons sponsor this. They're raising a reader program. They spend money and get these kids to start reading from kindergarten and moving them up up until third grade. One of the statistics that they talked about, and which was astonishing to me, is that the powers to be that look at state prisons and where they need to fund state prisons 20 years down the line, they look at third graders and their ability to read at grade level. So if they can't read at grade level, they use those numbers to estimate what they need for state prisons 20 years from now, and I think that's crazy. So it's, I think the Masons are doing a great job getting kids to read, and they're able to, on Monday they give them a bag, a red bag, and they fill it with books, and they take those books home on Monday, and they're able to read those books with their parents. And so that's what this push is on getting them to bring these books home, read with mom and dad or older siblings, but to read, and then bring those books back on Friday, and then on the next Monday they get a new set of books. So a great program to push literacy in our community. So this is the first year they came to Hemet. They've done it the last 7 years in San Jacinto. So exciting that they're in Hemet to work with the kids at McSweeney. Beyond that, that's all I have. Do you have something else? Okay. Up next, ad hoc committee, the investment policy ad hoc.
We are waiting for, I think Alan was gone last week, but we're waiting for stuff back from the bank, I believe. Is that correct? I think so. Okay.
Master annexation. Linda, you've got a little update that you can give us on somebody you spoke with?
Actually, there is legislation, and I don't remember the name of it, the number, in Sacramento right now dealing with the VLF funds that were taken away from cities who annexed areas during a certain period of time. It was when the VLF was taken away from the 4 new cities in Riverside County. Anyway, there is legislation to bring that back and to keep it going forward. I've also pulled some of the records from LAFCO and from the city of Hemet on the annexations that we have done the last 25 years. So it's just data. I don't know what to do with it. Beaumont is working on theirs, and they're running into some issues that LAFCO doesn't have complete sets of records either. And it goes back to the old days when everything was on paper and put it in storage and the rats come in and eat the paper. So we're working on that and probably set up a meeting soon with the city manager and go forward on seeing what we can do.
The Florida Avenue Ad Hoc Committee. We're still waiting on a meeting.
Yes, we were supposed to hear from John Belinsky this week, actually, and we have not received an email yet with his whatever he has to give us. But he wanted to email us something and then set up another meeting, so we're waiting for that. And as soon as that happens, then we'll schedule it within a week.
Have they said anything at all about stopping the project that we had agreed to in Sacramento, that it was going to be stopped and they were going to do the studies on the impact on our side streets?
We're going to have that conversation at the next meeting.
I'd kind of like to make a suggestion or a recommendation or whatever, that the city manager and you guys, whoever, set up a meeting with Joseph Tavallone and even Bob Wolf if you have to. I mean, they're local. They're from here, and they have been on the CTC forever. And if anybody can put a wrinkle in this thing going forward, it's one or both of them, and we need to use as much political capital as we can at this point if they want to go through with this project, then give us the documents, give us the studies that say there will be no negative impact on our schools, on our businesses, and on the quality of our air and our streets. And the governor is really, really big on his greenhouse gases and his vehicle miles traveled, and if that median goes in, it's going to, well, I'm preaching to the choir, right? But it makes me mad. They're not listening to us, and we need to have the big hammer and make them listen to us.
And I hope we're not giving them mixed messages. So as far as what our input is at this point, because I hope they honestly know that our goal is for either relinquishment of the highway or that there's no median. So
I left a pretty big hammer mark on their table. Right?
Yeah.
Didn't I?
just kind of a question. I don't know, would there be any value added to bringing Chad Campbell back into, or Chad Mays, Chad Campbell? It's a golfer. See where my head is right now. You know, Chad Mays was very instrumental in bringing and making that meeting happen in Sacramento. And I know he has a number of other things to do, but I'm wondering if there would be some benefit to inviting him to.
I did mention I'll be in Sacramento next week.
Well, and
Yeah, I
it's
think you
very-
should
I
speak
think
to him.
Him and I are already having, we're having lunch.
We need to keep him up to date.
Yeah,
as
I
what's
talked
been
to him
happening.
at the Senate Central birthday party about the fact that we were being ignored completely. So he is aware of it, and please reach out to him when you're in
We're going to
Sacramento.
have lunch next week.
Good.
The next one, special events ad hoc.
Yes, Councilmember Brown and I are meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, Wednesday, right? Tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to go through those and come up with a recommendation for council to consider. So that's on the agenda for tomorrow.
City manager.
I'd like to announce that we have received the audit for 16-17 and the CAFR. Have we posted it yet and it's been posted to our website, so that's available. Complete. That's all I got.
Vacation.
Vacation was fine, thank you.
Very good. Future agenda items.
So I can't remember, I think I brought this up before, but I want to try and address, and I only bring it up now because I don't see it on here. I want to try to address the refuse areas for commercial trash enclosures and where what's happening with them now, such as the homeless building encampments in those enclosures. So I'd like to have that on a future agenda item and have staff look into what we can do to try and eliminate that problem.
Any others?
I do have one thing that I'd like to see, and it's probably far out into the future, but I noticed that we, partly because of the Measure U, has allowed us to rebuild our police department, and one of the consequences of that is some enhanced traffic enforcement. We've been doing some special projects, and we get briefed on those occasionally, but I would think it would be beneficial to all to have some a study session at some future point talking about what the Traffic Bureau is doing, what they've been doing, what they have planned, those kinds of things. Because I think one of the things that I hear quite frequently, other than panhandling and the transient issue, is traffic and the scofflaws that are out there. So I think obviously the long-term objective is voluntary compliance, but we all know that there's people that need some incentive by a document. So I'd appreciate some kind of a traffic enforcement study session.
On that, one of our finest was sitting on the west end of town. Monday when I sped by, thank goodness he was occupied with someone else. I went, oh my goodness, speed limit's 45.
When I drove down Stetson, I think it was on Monday, I was on my way to McSweeney, and I saw one pull out on Stetson. I'm like, good, because Stetson's become a raceway. Carly?
I saw a motor officer this evening.
Yeah.
I was looking through my email, and I can't exactly find it, but we did get that recent
press release, remember, on the traffic, stopping the jaywalkers. So that was excellent. I think that was in the paper. Hmm. Yes, and they were actually doing stings. I saw it in San Jacinto as well. And that was exciting.
Did one with, if you're talking on your phone?
Yeah, if you're talking on your phone. Yeah, it was good. Awesome.
Any other future agenda items? All right, seeing none, we will adjourn to Tuesday, May